Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Nama of the DC Camp Branch of Great Millstone. Back for another video. First and foremost, call all Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem B'Gahakodash. And of course, once again, double honors go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who were well. I'd like to send salutations also out to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways pushing the truth, and also by ways of videos that are constantly put out. Alright, getting this truth out, alright, and it's working. Part of the reason that this devil is acting the way he is now is because, hey, we're winning on a level that he never anticipated that we would be fighting. In other words, we're not playing his game. Alright, but in any case, before I get into this, hold on. This is the copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Alright, so we got that out of the way. We're going to be talking about one of these many traps and snares that, these wicked pieces of, POSs are laid for our people. And just so you know, in the news lately, looks like they're going to be cutting back here. Alright, it's going to be pulling the rug out from underneath a lot of our people. Alright, but not only us, but for them also, as far as anyone can tell. So let's go ahead and run the video here. Did you hear that? They found a way to make it perpetual, and he said how, and for the reasons, because it's by profit. See, this is what we're talking about when we say we need to get the hell up out of here, because this is engineered in a way that no amount of going to college or any of that is going to help, because you're still dependent on them to give you employment, to give you certain things to help advance you. You will never win. That's the whole point. That's why this whole thing needs to be destroyed. This whole wicked ass beast system must be destroyed. And that point there is what the majority of our people are unwilling to grasp, is the fact that this wasn't done in order to help us. No, far from it. And he's going to continue on. I'm not going to jump the gun here, but all these, and this is from the government now, all these things that they've done to make sure that we don't have a chance to settle and build. Hence what they did after chattel slavery. All right, with when we built our own towns and whatever have you to get away, to have some semblance of peace. What did they do? But again, that's the curses. These things continue to identify us. All right, I'll come back to these, but it's nothing but snares that have been laid before us. And again, this is the curses. All right, and what did it say about our feet not having? Let's see. Among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Most High Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. Make no mistake, this is the Most High. When you go to Baruch, the 4th chapter, it goes into that. All right. Let's see real quick. Baruch 4. And right off the bat, at the top, it tells you, well, why are these things happening to us? It says, this is the book of the commandments of the Most High, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. Turn thee, O Jacob, or Israel, and take hold of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. Give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. O Israel, happy are we, for things that are pleasing to the Most High are made known unto us. All right. And down at 6 it says, ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved the Most High to wrath, ye were delivered unto the enemies. For ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils, and not to the Most High. Ye have forgotten the everlasting God that brought you up, and ye have grieved Jerusalem that nursed you. All right, so that's the reason we're going through what we're going through. But the thing is, there's light at the end of the tunnel, because as it says, two chapters further along in Deuteronomy 30 and 7, all these curses that were on us are being put on our enemies, and we see this. All right, so again, what does it say? Let's go back to it says what? Going up here, it says, be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel. All right, so there is reason. All right, when you get into this, you understand that, yeah, what we went through, and there's still more to come. Don't worry, because these same people we talking about here, they got plans. All right, there's reasons why Daniel 12 and 1, and other scriptures are there about Jeremiah 30 and 7, Jacob's trouble, 2 Ezra 15 and 16th chapter. All right, these things are to come. All right, because this is the end of Revelation 12th chapter. We are going to experience this devil's horns. All right, his wrath. All right, because he knows he's going down. As it says, Revelation 12 and 12, he knoweth he hath but a short time. All right.
The same people who created our problems also are going to come along and give us the solution too. As the victims of the American government, we can't afford to let the enemy pay for our housing. We can't afford to be beholden to or dependent on the very people who are trying to take us under. Next to taking one's health, the second most devastating thing that someone can take from you is shelter. That's why the marauding white mobs of the turn of the 20th century destroyed black homes during those genocidal attacks on black townships. And in a number of cases, the homes that subjects like this, people have got to understand there's a reason why there are black people who say, hey, there's too many people in things like Section 8 to begin with. It's damaged the culture. And as I pointed out, these programs have been used as Trojan horses to act like they're here to help black people. In reality, they were meant to undermine black families and ultimately to leave a huge number of black people open to precisely this kind of rug pull. And let's be honest with ourselves. If it wasn't this, it would have been something else. I posted a morning briefing last year about the evictions that were going on. Now it was primarily black women who were being targeted by this. We're hearing the same thing this year. This was during the Biden administration where all that was going on. So if people are going to be indignant about the mass eviction wave that they know is coming, I hope they also save some outrage for what was allowed to happen during Biden's term too. I certainly can't see where Section 8 has empowered black people. That's not to say Trump's changing things in order to do us any favors. Remember, he's not getting rid of the program altogether. He's just changing how it operates. You can bet he's looking and wondering how can he have Jared Kushner cut in for a piece of the action. When I hear him saying that he's going to allow each individual state to do what they want, a lot of black folks say, well, it's okay because there's a majority of red states in America. But let's keep in mind, these guys are the first ones to be siphoning off money for all of their little inbred pals. That's where all that federal money's ultimately going to wind up at. It reminds me of how the USDA allowed their assistance programs to farmers to be controlled by so-called local boards, which were all white and chaired by individuals who were completely and thoroughly antagonistic toward black farmers. Now, a number of people have been saying that with the reduction in Section 8, that would also mean that a number of these slumlords are about to go belly up. I have absolutely no tears to shed for that group, especially when you consider that a lot of them intentionally decided to allow their rentals to become flea traps. But just because a number of those parasites may be about to go extinct doesn't mean that this is going to
And that's the thing with situations such as this, because that's how they just funnel money and move it around, and it doesn't get to the people that actually need it. You know, it's lots of nepotism going on as he's going, is going into, and that's how this works. Especially when it comes to your local politics, yeah, the good old boy network, all that.
translate to some sort of bounty of new homes for black people. Remember, fewer black Americans own a home than white Americans, and that gap is 46% to 74%, which is worse than it was in the 1960s when housing discrimination was still legal.
And that's a good point, because you keep bringing up stats from the past, like here in the 60s, and it's worse. Why is that? If we've come such a long way. But the numbers don't support that.
Speaks volumes about how effective the so-called first black president and Asian vice president have been in bridging any sort of economic divides that we face. Democrats and their shills and suck-ups need to get that through their heads. This is why Kamala Harris's black support cratered. It wasn't because black voters were swinging towards Trump. It was because black voters stopped trying to fool themselves into believing that voting for Democrats would actually translate into any sort of beneficial policies.
Exactly. They wised up for the most part. And they figured out, you know what? Both of these motherfuckers are playing us. Why the fuck we just automatically gotta be on the Democratic plantation? And you see the results. And now you got this idiot, the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. They prop him up because he's a Rhodes Scholar and all this other shit. And he just came out and, declined support for the reparations. So we have no one, not that you're ever going to get it, but the point being, we have no one to really, truly stand up for us. And that's why we're out here on the highways and byways trying to encourage our people. Hey, the real power is Yahweh, why Yahweh Shai. Alright? That's it. Yahweh Shai is to advocate for us. Because you're always going to lose if you're going to depend on this man, whether someone that looks like you or not. Alright, because the same system runs them both.
We saw Democrat enclaves like Chicago and New York money to make a down payment on a home, and used all of their local resources to help people who were in the country illegally, intentionally overlooking and bypassing black residents who have been here all along. And then the anti-black racism that these same immigrants brought with them. And a number of those same individuals have been allowed to access those same government programs, whether they're in the country legally or not. Democrats love that kind of thing, and I've explained to you why that is. I'm not trying to throw cold water on the shrinking or...
And that, ladies and gentlemen, alright, if you ever wondered why Trump came out and talked about our people and the 14th Amendment, who all that 13th, 14th, and 15th, it was exclusively for us, the descendants of slaves, right? But it was being used for everybody else. And he came out and said, no, 14th Amendment was strictly about that, because there's several cases. One big one in the late 1898? Damn it, I forgot the name of it. But that's the one they try to run with when it comes to this birthright citizenship. I can't remember. I think it was it a Moabite? Damn it, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, and there have been a couple others since. But but make no mistake, it's not like he's trying to do us any favors, because trust you me, they got something in store for us. They're getting all, Northern Kingdom out of here, and they're making a big ruckus over that. And yet, you got these Europeans, namely from Ukraine and other countries, that are, been coming over here, unannounced, and not much media coverage for it. And that was the thing about the Chicago mayor. He brought that point up. He said, you making a big fuss over the Northern Kingdom here, but look at all these Ukrainians and all that shit, And then you come up here, the big slap in the face is the Dutch South, and I make it a point to call them just that, the Dutch South Africans. And you tell a blatant, outright lie that's easily proven to be such, and give them status, another slap in the face to us. He just talked about Northern Kingdom, getting benefits, and they're not even citizens. Well, that's a slap in the face to us. It was meant as cold, disrespect to us. And that's going to continue, and it's only going to get worse. Alright, because you got to remember, they can't, normally, but again, with their laws and stuff, they can do really what they want. I was going to say, well, they can't deport us, but they're looking for something. Trust you me, it might be 13th Amendment and all that. Who knows?
Reconfiguration of Section 8, but I am trying to say that black people have a bad habit of getting happy when there's nothing to get happy about. We can justifiably be disapproving of how these alleged social safety nets have been used as nets to ensnare us, and for the most part has turned into nothing more than a massive subsidies program for the most willfully dysfunctional and willfully disempowered amongst us. People who are at the bottom and apparently like it there. And while I'm sure that there's many genuinely needy people who are going to wind up caught up in this thing, the reality is that there have been black people for decades who have been saying, do not allow yourselves to become dependent on these kind of programs precisely because of this kind of eventuality. If it wasn't this, I can assure you, it would have been something else. Remember, the first big welfare cut started under a Democrat, Bill Clinton. Remember? I simply feel the same way about this Section 8 development as I feel about everything else that the Orange Man has said he's going to do. I'll believe it when I actually see it. The problem is that the people who have been making money off these programs still want that money, and there's no substitutes being set up for that. As black people, we have to make sure not to start talking grateful for things. We have a bad habit of showing gratitude to people who aren't even thinking about us. We can talk about whether this or that policy will be unintentionally beneficial to us, but if someone's not directly trying to benefit us, then it makes no sense for us to be giving them direct praise. What's going on here could very well have some indirect benefit, that's fine. But if you're going to be ending Section 8, it's ultimately meaningless unless you deal with the endemic poverty that made people turn to those programs in the first place. Nothing that's going on right now is going to help the racial housing gap. Not that it's meant to. And that's my point. If you want to celebrate this latest development, that's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. What I am saying is, if you're going to be optimistic, I recommend being guardedly optimistic. Housing is at the very core of a lot of America, especially the so-called American dream. Housing happens to be the core of the so-called cost of living crisis as well. So this issue strikes at more than just whether or not taxpayers should be made to foot the bill for non-working people to have a roof over their heads, and for how long. Even if this does turn out to be an ultimately beneficial turn of events, it still isn't complete until there are follow-up policies that truly address the issues we've been having with housing. Speaking of which, a man's home is his castle, but let's not kid ourselves. Where black people are concerned, that castle is always under siege.
There you go. Because the thing that they understood, and it's biblical. When we go to Mark, 3rd chapter here, about what? Binding that strong man. Verse 27. It says, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man. Alright? And then he will spoil his house. What was one of the tools they used? Feminism. Alright? That was one of the tools they used. Again, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Alright? And here comes Section 8. All that. Alright? You know, so they knew what they were doing. Alright? And that's again one of these snares and nets. Alright, let's see. I did it backwards. Alright, let's see here. Yeah, Psalm 64 and 5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. Alright, they say, who shall see them? See, they don't really believe in the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Yahweh Shah, alright, respectively. They don't. Alright. Let's see. Psalm 141:9. Keep me from the snares which they have laid for me, and the gins of the workers of iniquity. Another word for snare, gin. Alright. Proverbs 22 and 5. Thorns and snares are in the way of the froward. He that doth keep his soul shall be far from them. Alright. Meaning Most High is not going to let you get caught up. Which would include, right here in Jeremiah, some of your own people. For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait as he that setteth snares. They set a trap, they catch men. Alright. So I'm gonna, stop it there. Yeah. It's they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But he made a good point earlier when he was talking about and you take it for what it is, but you got to understand all of this. We're dependent on whether you work or you don't. You're still dependent on the enemy by and large. All right. Illusions. All right. The thing is, we need to get the fuck up out of here. Isaiah 51:14. You need to be in that mindset. It says the captive exile hasteneth to be loose. You want to get the fuck up out of here. All right. 2 Peter 3 and 10 and 11 goes further on that. Ultimately we know all this shit is going to be destroyed. So again, what mindset, what mind frame should you be in? Alright. So with that, hey, until the next video, shalom.